Welcome to Tech Talk Nation, talking about the latest tech, industry news, and hot topics. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Visit our website at techtalknation.com.
Good evening and welcome to Tech Talk Nation. I'm your host, Matt Fitzgerald, and we have a wonderful show for you tonight. We got a lot going on in the tech world today, and this week is going to be nuts for a lot of reasons. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I am joined by two regular contributors on the show, two great guys. We got Matt Grislow and Ryan Eastman with us today. How are you guys doing?
Doing well, Fitz. Ready to talk about tech.
Spectacular.
I appreciated the enunciation on the S there. I really appreciate that. So, Grislow, before we started, you wanted to say a couple things about all of our social media.
Yeah, so we finally have it set up. Hopefully it's good to go. For those of you who didn't hear last week, we have social media platforms, or we social media accounts on 3 major platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So go follow us on Facebook at Tech Talk Nation Show, on Instagram at Tech Talk Nation, and on Twitter at Tech Talk Nations. That's nation at the end with an S. And then also, we do stream live here on YouTube. We're trying to get a more usual, more set schedule. But we're posting on our Instagram page on our story about when we're going live, so look there. But we do post the show on other streaming services: Spotify, Apple Music, Stitcher, anywhere you can get your podcast, any major platforms. So if you don't catch a show live, you absolutely can at a later time on those other platforms. So go check us out there and go follow us on our social media, where we're going to be posting some more, some bios about us, us 3 co-hosts, and just some more content. We're thinking of doing some things on our story. So don't forget about us when we're not live, and look for more content. Be ready for more stuff from us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're going to start off pretty quickly today with some tech news that we have. We're kind of starting, I guess you could call it a news section, but kind of like follow-ups. All the stuff that we talked about on the last show, we're going to kind of recap a little bit of what's changed in that, and kind of quickly go through some of the stuff that we want to talk about regarding some of the stuff that we covered last week. So the first update that we have from the show last week is Tim Cook confirming employees returning to Apple Park is pushed out to at least October. And we mentioned this one because last week he was all in his tushy in a knot with doing like ADA accommodation. That was really bad. But anyway, so
It's a weird turn of phrase, but all right.
I tried to say like 3 things at once and none of them worked. So welcome to live podcasting here, I guess. So that was really interesting to see. Our next article, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit in a couple of our previous shows here. Walmart just trying to become a tech company for some reason. They're trying to license all of their technology out to different people and see kind of what's going on with that. Not a ton has gone on more than we covered, but there was this really cool article on Quartz here that's more of like more opinion based, that kind of goes into the details of like, hey, are they really going to survive? But the biggest point that I wanted to make, and I'm not sure if anybody else wanted to talk about any of that stuff too, was just kind of like Walmart trying to be Amazon. And we're going to keep seeing that, I think. So
Who knows? I mean, I don't really shop at Walmart much, and they're just a small big box store, I guess, right? I think it's interesting to see some sort of pseudo competition with Amazon.
I've never heard anyone describe Walmart as small.
Comparatively to like Amazon.
fair, I guess. Okay, sure.
They've already dipped their toes in this before, though. They do have their own brand of, I believe, laptops and desktops.
Right. Yep.
Walmart?
And
Yeah.
just technology in general. I believe.
I think their laptops are surprisingly respectable too.
Really?
Crazy. Well, we'll see.
I know it's either their laptops or their desktops are surprisingly respectable.
I can see
I
it.
didn't know.
One of them is. I can't remember which right now.
For sure. We'll talk about that on a future episode, definitely. Alrighty, our next update we have for you here is the MagSafe Battery Pack. Somebody did a teardown about that and confirms dual cell design, and in traditional Apple fashion, it is terrible to repair. Not sure if there's anything else that really needs to be said on that, but yeah, we talked about that on last show, and they're using two like little battery cells basically. So interesting.
Yeah, most people have the policy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Apple has the policy, if it is broke, don't bother trying to fix it.
Well, let's hope things don't break, because our last update is Apple demolishes their earnings expectations, but their stock falls after warning about the supply shortage on chips. And this is once again the chip shortage that we're seeing over and over and recurring in the tech world today. Yes, Apple stocks dipped, and this is actually one of the first times that they're actually admitting that there may potentially be a problem with their supply chain. So we will definitely keep our eye on that as we go through the stories and go through life in the world of tech. Speaking of life in the world of tech today, there was a pretty cool thing that happened last week. I'm not sure if you've heard about it, but there's this big thing called the Olympics that are going on right now. And
Never heard of it.
yeah, I don't know what it is. But anyway, in Tokyo this year, they had their opening ceremonies had an 1,800 drone light show, which is absolutely insane. I think that is so cool. And I don't know. I mean, I just think drone shows are so cool. I've never seen one in person, but I really want to.
Is there footage on that site there?
Let me see if I could find it. There's a little bit of like a video here from Twitter. Let me see. Yeah, this is showing like
That is wild.
yeah.
I thought
Let's
I saw
see.
a picture floating around online. Yeah, and then it goes into the world.
Here, let's see if
And
it should. Yeah, there we go.
Oh my
Here, let's go back
gosh.
here. Yeah, so it like shimmers out and then it goes into like the world. Yeah, here. That is so cool.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. You know what? This isn't the first time that we're seeing like drone shows though. I believe it was this year's Super Bowl or the last year's Super Bowl where they did I think it was Lady Gaga that performed. I don't remember who it was performed, but they had a big display light show with drones, and it was all choreographed and everything. It might have been this year's Super Bowl. So this isn't the first time that's being done, but I guarantee you this is like the biggest implementation of that, and the most ornate and intricate version of that type of show. So I think it's pretty neat, and I'd like to see more of it because they can clearly pull it off. So I'd like to see it more.
Well, yeah, it's super cool, and just the software and the planning that has to go into something like that, I can only imagine, because there's the meme that I don't know if a lot of people have seen it, but there's a meme going around for a lot of computer programmers where Ryan knows what I'm talking about. He
No,
knows.
I don't, but I'm looking
Oh,
forward
really?
to it.
Okay, let me see if I can find it real quick. This was completely out of left field here.
While you're trying to find that, I just think I had an interesting point. I think it's actually sort of interesting that we're seeing this kind of push for more of these light shows with drones. It really easily replaces the need for like staged and very heavily choreographed dances, and does a better job of it only because drones won't fail. You program them and they'll run as long as nothing terribly happens. You know, it's not like one person, misses a step and it's a big joke or whatever, left shark, right shark meme from the Super Bowl a few years ago. Machines and robots have less error just by nature of them being machines and robots.
Well,
so I think
programmed
point about this sort of show.
Well, programmed machines and robots don't have errors. There's the kicker. But anyway, I found the
There you
meme.
go.
I
That's
found
fair.
this meme, and I just think it is so funny. Thanks to Imgur. I'm honestly not sure how to pronounce it, but I'm either made a fool of myself on live YouTube here or whatever. But
I
anyway,
pronounce the same way.
this is one of my favorite memes. I think it's so funny. It says they use coding and algorithms so the drones don't crash into each other, and then somebody wrote some code at the bottom. If going to crash into each other, don't.
Oh yeah, people have been doing this for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's funny. So there's your 2 cents of comedy here on a good old Tech Talk Nation. But yeah, it's definitely cool to see what's going on with all of these drones and how this technology is going to become more prevalent in the future. I saw a video of in China they've made like a QR code that you could scan out of drones, and I thought that was pretty cool. And then I saw another video of a boat that had a LCD monitor on the side going up and down the coastlines on all the beaches. And I'm like, are we going a little too far here? But we'll see. I just don't want to. I don't want to walk outside and see an ad for like Pepsi or big corporation in the sky made out of drones.
Well, I mean, the alternative is you fly a biplane or a small plane with a big banner on the back, right?
Yeah.
How different is that?
Fair.
Yeah. I don't know about the whole like replacing dancers thing. I think it's more for replacing fireworks because I don't know. There's the human element of dancers, which kind of makes it it's impressive because it's people doing it, not robots. Essentially, I don't know if they make robots do dancing. That might be more interesting. We'll see.
We will see indeed.
I
want
mean,
to see some robots break dancing.
Just like 2 minutes.
Goes.
A quick tangent. I mean, didn't they have like some robot shooting free throws in the Olympics?
Yeah, I was actually going to cover that in next week's podcast, but Japan is.
Well, there's a little foreshadowing.
There's a little foreshadowing, but
Sprinkle foreshadow.
Exactly. This entire Olympics, it has so much robotics in it. It is so cool. Like the mascot for the Olympics is a robot. That free throw robot, like all sorts of like stuff in the Olympic Village and things like that that's automated. So I'm gonna kind of go into that in a little bit next show. So
nice.
we'll go over some of that stuff, but we have a lot to talk about here still today. So the next article that we have for you is about Ryan. You actually sent this one in. High-end gaming PCs are banned in 6 U.S. states based on an energy bill. So I'm not sure if you want to take this one or you want me to go into it a little bit. But
I mean, I can get the bones of it out there.
Okay, I'm just gonna let you go because
to really strip. Yeah, I'm just gonna roll to strip it down to like the absolute bare essentials. This is specifically referring to an Alienware PC.
Thank you.
High-end models. Essentially, the 6 states revised their energy bills, and in it they say they don't like high-end gaming computers. Essentially, so if your gaming computer takes up too much energy, they're banned more or less.
Right. Yeah.
And then let me see. Yeah, if you go down to the ES calculation, you can see all the parameters they use to classify a gaming computer that has too much energy.
Right.
Yeah, that's the bones of it. It mostly just applies to this one Alienware, but I'm sure there's a bunch of other computers it would apply to as well.
Right. And I'm not sure how I feel on that. I understand why you wouldn't want these gaming computers that are like so high energy and use a ton of energy. But to put that into perspective, I literally have a server rack right here full of servers that use a lot of energy.
It's I think incredibly stupid. For starters, you can literally get around it by getting a PO box in the closest state and then just carrying the computer into the state. I don't think it does what it's designed to do. I think what it's designed to do is kind of stupid. Like, is this computer really burning more energy than, the dude sitting over there watching TV or who leaves their TV on for their dog? It's like, really, this computer is the issue?
Good
yeah,
point.
I think it's stupid.
I agree with you. I think they're kind of mincing, they're worried over small potatoes. There's bigger energy wasting appliances that people have in their homes. I really don't think this is the big sticking point that we really need to tackle in terms of energy efficiency and making everything green and things like that.
I mean, honestly, I don't even think it's the state's place to tackle. Like, let the actual individuals care.
Well,
And more or less, I mean, no amount of gaming computers that you don't sell to that state is going to put a dent in anything that's happening in, like, say, China, where they're still building brand new coal plants to this day.
I guess the one thing I can think of, or another point that I'd like to make is, I mean, they're worried about gaming PCs. What about companies and just businesses that just use electricity like it's nothing? Is that totally different than some, Joe Schmo running his gaming PC? Are you really going to categorize them differently? And if so, why? I mean, one is commercial, one is residential. Fine, I'll give you that. But even still, I mean, you could have a huge landscaping, lighting architecture for your home. You could have all kinds of big energy using appliances, again, at your home. I don't really understand why they're singling out this specific electronic item.
I see two things wrong here. Number one, wouldn't it be better to, instead of prevent somebody from owning the device, prevent them from just leaving it on all the time? Because think about it, you may only be gaming for a couple hours. Do you really need the computer on for the rest of the time unless you're running like a server out of it or something like that? But also, what about the people are going to be stuck with the high electricity bills anyway? So like if they buy this computer, they're going to put the money into electricity to power said computer. They know what they're getting into, in my opinion.
The one thing I can think of is a decent reason, and decent in this sense I would say is very loose, as to why these states are banning these types of computers, is that they don't believe, or they know that their electrical grid and infrastructure can't take that, which I would be really concerned if that's the case, because you're telling me that 6 states can't handle, people having gaming PCs at their homes. I'd be much more worried if something much more catastrophic happened where they weren't able to handle the load on their grids.
I mean, the only one I think you could justifiably argue that for might be Hawaii, because it's islands. Although California's grids are already pressed beyond belief because it's California.
Is Hawaii one of those states?
Yeah, Hawaii is one of the states.
Then that is understandable.
Why? Yeah, Hawaii's the only one I'll give credit to just because their, energy infrastructure is probably rougher to run than anyone else's. But I think it's honestly just a bunch of meaningless grandstanding, them trying to be like, oh, we're so hard on, all this electricity usage, when really they're just trying to gain points with people.
Yeah.
And regardless of anything else, one of the things they literally classify it by is expandability score calculation. And what that signals to me is that if you buy a high-end motherboard that you're going to be able to use for 3 generations, you're going to get punished for it. So they're basically asking you to create more e-waste rather than buy something high quality now.
Good point.
That's a fair point. Doesn't seem like this policy was really well thought out.
Well, welcome to government.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well,
Nothing scarier than the phrase, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Thank you for that tidbit, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Sorry.
Anyway, in talking about energy infrastructure, our next article that we have here is about Elon Musk and how he's explaining how non-Tesla EV owners are going to be able to use the Supercharger network, and basically how they're going to plan out that and all of this stuff. Basically what they want to do is they want to open up their Supercharger network, which is a big network of electric car chargers, to people who don't own Teslas. A lot of people aren't really fond of the idea because they have there's a lot of wait times and some of the more popular charging stations, and people are kind of concerned that it's going to just kind of shoot them in the foot in a way. It's going to make the problem worse. So yeah, I'm not sure what I would do if I owned a Tesla. I'm not sure about you guys. What's your thoughts?
Is Tesla making money from this?
From their own superchargers, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Well, they don't make it for their own. They make it for their own cars. I'm pretty sure it's usually free if you're out of state.
I think they ended that. I'm not sure.
Oh, did
I'm
they?
not
That
quite
must
sure
be-
how the logistics work.
Well,
I guess-
my question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, my question would be if they're making money off other people using their supercharger stations, well, they're now able to probably build more.
So you will have to have an account with Tesla. I think there is like a nominal fee you'll have to pay if you're a non-Tesla user or EV owner. And then you'll use an adapter and just say, I'm going to pay for as much electricity as I need.
It says
That makes sense to me, though.
here. There's Elon Musk said, we're thinking about a real simple thing where you just download the Tesla app, go to a supercharger, indicate which stall you're in, plug in your car, even if it's not a Tesla, and you just access the app to turn the stall on. I'm in for how much electricity, and that should work at almost any manufacturer's car. So it'll be
Yeah.
cool.
I like that.
I guess I definitely agree with the Tesla owners. It sort of cheapens their experience and definitely puts more of a strain on their ability to charge their cars quicker. As you said in the article, or as you said and as the article says, that they already currently face some wait times. I think more than anything else, because Elon Musk has, and this is something I think we talked about last week, or I talked about last week, because Elon Musk is so big on, or maybe this was a conversation with you, Fitz, the other day. I think it was. Because Elon Musk is so into advancing the EV community and really just wants to elevate this segment of cars to the next level and put them on par with the gas guzzling cars out there. I think that he should be working more with the other car manufacturers, and there could be some sort of car alliance or charging alliance to create some not only industry standard sort of station or like a shared station, but also just helping push out that technology and sharing that, if he hasn't already, to encourage and help the other car manufacturers to create more of these superchargers, so that you don't have to go to just the Tesla superchargers. You can go to any supercharger because they're all compatible with your vehicles.
Right. And in chat is actually blowing up right now. Somebody asked they should make non-Tesla owners pay a premium over Tesla owners. That way it gives incentive to purchase a Tesla. I completely agree with that.
Well, I don't know if they revoked the policy or not. I thought the way it used to work anyway was, if you're taking your Tesla out of your local area, you can use their network for free.
I thought it was the reverse. I thought you could use the local ones for free and the rest of them cost. But I know they had some policy around that.
Let's.
While you're looking that one up, another question: are you not at all concerned about the recharge time if you were on a road trip or something along those lines? So
I think it's always.
If you're taking an electric car on a road trip, you're already not taking the ideal route, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always concerned about that. You got to be on top of charging your vehicle, right? And you got to plan your trip accordingly. In fact, the Teslas have abilities to route your destination or route your trip based off of the superchargers. And maybe a feature that they could include in other cars is that same sort of routing feature where it'll auto map all the Tesla superchargers. But yeah, I think it's a valid point. And I think that is going to be a problem as long as the longer, higher range vehicles and electric vehicles, as long as they remain more expensive. If those prices can go down, then I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue. And you'll see higher capacity and higher range electric vehicles to kind of fix that. I guess I don't really know off the top of my head how far, let's say, from where we're from, Fitz, the northwest suburbs of Chicago, to, let's say, Fort Lauderdale is off the top of my head. But
It's all about economics, your supply and demand of
Yeah.
electricity. So,
Yeah.
in chat, somebody goes, Tesla owners pay to use a supercharger. The cost is just minimal compared to gas. So, there you go.
It looks like
Yeah.
they don't do that anymore. That might have been a thing that they did a while ago.
Yeah, I thought that was like some for their like initial rollout, like the first
It,
whatever.
honestly, it could be that could be from 2 or 3 years ago, and I might have just stored that in the back of my head.
For sure. Well, we'll see.
On a somewhat quick tangent, just as I throw this out
Oh,
there,
boy.
maybe this is a next week thing. Well, this might just be a next week thing, but I think they were talking heavily about trying to transition over to lithium-ion batteries.
Iron, not ion.
Lithium-ion, because it's a lot easier to acquire iron than nickel.
Interesting.
And that might have just been Elon, doing
I might be
whatever
wrong,
he
but-
does.
I might be wrong, but didn't he have a press conference like last October for Battery Day, explaining his new technologies and new batteries?
He might have. I know there was something that came up
Was
in the
that
last
not
week or
part of-
so. That might have been. I just know in the last week or so he's been talking about it.
I think if that's the case, they weren't broadly used in a lot of their vehicles, and I think they are being used in the Plaid model. Don't quote me on that.
Maybe.
But they're ramping up production of their new battery technology, which is much more higher capacity. It's more efficient. The manufacturing process is actually a lot more efficient. If you really want to watch a really great video on their new batteries, go check it out on YouTube. Just look up like Tesla Battery Day 2020, and he talks about it for 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Talks about everything about how he's brought the cost down significantly, like over 50% or something like that. It's absurd what they're able to
Crazy.
do with these new batteries.
Wow.
I don't know if that's specifically referencing the lithium iron battery or if that's how they've advanced lithium nickel, or what are they called? I think it's lithium nickel. It might be something else.
Well, we will see. We will definitely see.
Yeah, that might be a next week thing.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it.
They are using lithium, nickel, cobalt, aluminum. Not
That's a lot of
nickel,
elements.
manganese, cobalt.
Yes, the new. Yeah, this week I think is when he started talking, or he probably has said this before, but like he's been hitting them with this week was about switching over to like a lithium iron based battery.
For
just because,
sure.
Iron's not hard to find.
Cool. Well, in other news about Tesla too, Tesla is reportedly going to be moving out of malls. They're moving their dealerships kind of like out of malls and into more freestanding buildings. And once again, another blow to the mall market that we've seen. Malls, unfortunately, seem to be dying right now. But this is another nail in the coffin by Tesla. In my opinion, one of the coolest draws to a mall, deciding to not be back. So we'll see how that works. And kind of how Tesla's gonna like move away from that. I mean, I've seen freestanding Tesla dealers now, which is cool. So, yeah.
I think in the article they said they're looking at renting out like parking lots, which is kind of just funny. A company of such big brand recognition and stature is renting or is thinking about renting parking lots. I just think it's pretty funny. But they don't really have a big physical store presence. There's one not too far from me. I don't know if it's in Castleton or it is considered Carmel or Indianapolis. I think there's one back home in Schaumburg. But I don't really know if there's that many of them. And if there are, they're not always even full stores where they have cars. I believe a lot of them are like showrooms. So
Right.
I'm not really sure if they're doing much for the customer, like showing them the vehicle. And to that end, if it's really not profitable for them and it doesn't make sense for them, and it doesn't make sense for a lot of businesses right now to have physical stores, especially with the Delta variant of COVID ravaging the world, not just the United States. Tim Cook's pushing for more, work from home till October. We're seeing Tesla depart from their stores, and it just makes sense, at least right now. And if it doesn't make sense for them in the future, then they'll continue to do what they're gonna do. I don't think it's gonna change anyone's minds about whether or not they're gonna buy a Tesla, because for the longest time they didn't really have stores.
Right.
Yeah, mall's a dead industry anyway, and it'd be like the Tesla's equivalent of like Google's pop-up shops, you know?
In a way, yeah, definitely. And we will see how that works out. The next story that we have for you, I think, is super cool. So this is a story about a new processor that's promising over 3 to 15 times faster server storage. And me being a server nerd, I just geek out over stuff like this. I think it is so cool. Long story short, what this technology does is this is using a FPGAs and ASICs, kind of similar to what people are using for like Bitcoin miners, kind of, to basically automate storage faster than what's currently on the market and offload a lot of the file operations from the actual processor of the computer to this card instead. And I think that is so cool. And I know, Ryan, you think that, like, being a computer engineer, like, I'm sure that's pretty cool tech. And Grizzly was
absolutely
super happy about it.
Ryan?
I mean, just to, demystify it a little bit, all ASIC means is application-specific integrated circuit. So functionally what they did was, instead of having their CPUs be like, oh, hey, you are also a memory controller, they said, no, we're going to custom build this. And it will speed it up to Lord knows what degree. 10x probably is, I think, in the range they gave.
Right. And the cool thing, too, is it's actually fits a normal slot in a computer. Like, you don't have to have any special slot for it. You don't have to do anything. It fits into a standard PCI slot within a computer. And it's also low profile, which means that it can work in a lot of those servers where you have 42 of them in a rack. Like, you can fit all these cards in those servers and still have the same density, which is even better for a lot of the enterprise market, which they're really looking to target. So
yeah, I'm curious if this trickles down to consumer, if it's just mostly for server because you do have such large RAID arrays.
Right. And what a RAID array is, for people who don't really know, is basically it's an array full of disks that all are basically connected together to seem like one really, really, really big disk, but the data is stored across all of them. So yeah, that's
and there's usually stuff inside there that you don't lose your data and whatnot.
Right, like fault tolerance and things like that. So like if a disk breaks, you're okay. So
yeah, I just think it's really neat to see this sort of performance upgrade, and such significant performance upgrade, and well deserved for this server community that's going to serve. No pun intended there, I guess.
Way to go. But anyway, yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things where I definitely want to believe it when I see it. So once they can give me really good benchmarks, I think that's going to be awesome.
Although, to tie this into a last week topic, Microsoft delivering Windows over the internet, I mean, this is a big boost to that, along with every other like streaming company for games and whatnot.
Definitely.
Oh yeah.
And they say they have quotes from Intel and NVIDIA for kind of like some of their technology that they want to have a look at. So we'll see. I think it's super cool.
Those are the right customers you want.
Exactly. Alrighty. Well, the next story we have for you is about Boeing and Boeing's Starliner capsule, ready to do a do-over. And I know you were really excited about this one, Grislow, but you told me it was today, but it seems like it was Friday or something.
Yeah, I misspoke. I definitely thought it was sooner rather than later, but sooner rather than later may not be the case for Boeing. They've been waiting on this for quite some time here. This is their second attempt at this test. They shot a capsule up 2 years ago and had some really bad failures in the software, in the communications. It had to be sent back to Earth 2 days earlier, I believe, than it was supposed to. It wasn't able to dock with the ISS. Boeing's capsule really dropped the ball there, and they really went back to the drawing board to try and figure out how to fix it. And what's something like $410 million later, and 2 years later, they're looking to try it again. They're trying to send it up to space, send it to dock with the ISS with no people. I don't even believe there's cargo on it. And then 10 days later, undock and come back to Earth. That failure, I think, really sort of accelerated SpaceX's prominence and really made them a more serious competitor in NASA's eyes. And so I really think this is an opportunity for Boeing to kind of rewrite their wrongs last 2 years and prove to NASA that they really can be a trusted partner and that their technology really works.
Interesting take on that.
Yeah, Boeing's been having a rough decade or so.
Yeah.
Between, what was it, Malaysia again.
The MagSafe.
The Max problems, dude. Oh.
Well, an interesting point is that during the time of the last launch, they were right in the middle of the 737 Air Max or Max airline or airplane issues. So it was kind of in a bad time. And then also it came out, or there were investigations of like hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts of fraud. And so, yeah, they've had a pretty rough time in the last 5 or 6 years, to put it lightly, as you said, Ryan. And so a successful mission, both launch on Friday and then return mission 10 days later, a week and a half or whatever later, is very much needed for Boeing.
Right, definitely. And
especially coming off the heels of Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic with their successful flights. Granted, they are very different. They're commercial flights for people like you and I, and not astronauts. But
Jeff Bezos' didn't blow up, so we don't get to settle that argument.
But that being said, two billionaires were able to accomplish this feat in their first try, or at least first manned cruise and some other tests. And Boeing's almost quite literally blew up in their face, or blew up in space.
Right.
So they need this badly.
Definitely. I agree with that. And I think that it's good to have more people that can go to space, more people that are in that market, because that competition will drive the prices down to get things to space. And I mean, you can't argue that SpaceX isn't the industry leader, right? The privatized leader right now in space, period. And it's good to see some of these other companies actually doing more within this realm, and just making sure that there's other people in the market here, which is, I think, the biggest draw.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a stat the other day where space travel is the only thing from the 60s that hasn't been like cut by like a factor of 10 in price.
That's fair.
Just inflation, obviously, but
yeah, and I think to jump off of what you were saying, it's about NASA. In the article, it mentions, there's a line, it says NASA's moved from owning their systems to being customers of these systems. And so it's interesting to see how things change over time. Not just here in this industry, but also, for example, a lot of subscription services, Spotify, Apple Music. There are so many subscription services now that 10, 15 years ago, you would just pay to own the whatever you had, whether it be the music, whether it be your car, leasing, being more popular. I guess in a way, NASA's sort of in a subscription model with their other companies. So it's interesting to see it in that light, considering in the history of the program, they were the people that own their stuff. They were the commanding and owning bodies and entities.
Right.
So it's really cool to see this switch. And to that point, it only makes it better. Competition makes things better.
I agree. Well, wish Boeing luck with this this test. Hopefully it all works out for them, and we will probably give an update next week on hopefully some very good results. But we'll see. Hopefully, don't want that to end like 2019. Alrighty, well, moving on. This is just kind of a quick article I wanted to kind of share. Right now, iOS and Android's activations are now split evenly in the US, according to new research by the Consumer Research Intelligence Partner. Thank you to Mac Rumors for this article. Down here, you can see their chart. Long story short, we've seen the amount of iOS activations increase over time within the last couple years. So kind of crazy to see. And I don't know if that's just because of Apple developing better software or Android OS becoming more tracky. I don't know. It take that as you will. So
I mean, I have theories, but
fair.
go for it, or we're just gonna keep this one quick.
I mean, if you want to go for it, go for
I'll
it.
go for it a little bit, just because I've been on Android basically the entire lifetime of me owning a smartphone. So, I mean, over the last, I don't know, 5 years, 7 years or so, there's been a lot of consolidation in the Android market. Previously, you know, huge, like, giant names you'd see, like, I mean, HTC is gone, LG is gone, Sony's become so, like, weirdly specific. There's a very small number of people who buy their phones. So you're left with just a staggeringly small amount now of companies who, I mean, they're the companies who usually kind of were a little boring in a lot of ways. Because you're left with your, like, Samsungs, Motorola for, like, the low end, some OnePlus, but even their market share is quite small. So,
Right.
like, a lot of the interesting companies now are gone who would, like, innovate and, you know, set these new trends. And they've kind of disappeared because, I don't know, I guess they're not able to sell phones. So they're left with Samsung, which even a lot of Android people take issues with some of their software.
Right.
Yeah,
Well-
I mean, Fitz.
Oh, go ahead. You could go.
I would just talk about the flip side of things. You look at that chart, it's past, what, 5-6 years? Over that course of time, with Apple and iOS, they focused more on services. They've really focused more on this iOS Apple ecosystem, releasing products like the HomePod Mini, AirPods, AirTags, to name a few. And so I don't know if that's a big push. I wouldn't say that the software improvements have been so great that they've really brought people over from Android, or if it was more of some hardware changes in their products, their existing products that people like so much that they bought 1 year and they're keeping them longer, instead of, you know, trying them out and then going back or whatever. And you're seeing more of like a slow kind of adoption because of hardware. I wouldn't say it's specifically because of software, but yeah, the one thing I can think of is that over the past few years, they've really upped their game with services, and it feeds into this Apple iOS ecosystem that even I can't really refute. Is a point that I can't refute is that it really, when you're in it and when you increase the size of your own personally owned Apple ecosystem, it's very hard to exit. Everything is made and integrated very tightly. The AirPods, they connect to your phone as soon as you open up the case. With the HomePod, it's seamless integration. Again, with the Apple Watch, and that's not even a new product. And they're even increasing the other services that they're providing with the VPN and Apple One and their fitness thing. So
We'll see.
it's hard to pinpoint where and why, but my guess would be that their ecosystem is getting, I guess, more enticing, which is a little surprising, considering some of the products are pretty limited in capabilities, at least initially. For example, the AirPods, they weren't noise canceling at first. They didn't have this spatial audio. That came in a later generation. It's just interesting to see this, and what I'm looking for is how this impacts and what will impact that chart and next year's findings. Because in this year and last year, it looks like the splits plateaued at a 50-50 split, with Apple having the momentum.
Right.
But who knows what's going to change that, if something will change that.
I mean, you probably did hit upon the point. It's the ecosystem. Once it gets one tendril into you, it tries to get the next and the next and the next.
Well, this is actually a really good transition to our next story. Speaking about the Apple ecosystem here, it says, Apple says don't buy AirTag replacement batteries that have a bitter coating. So Duracell actually released a new battery that has a CR2032 battery that has a bitter coating on it. So if a child or somebody tries to eat it, they like physically cannot swallow it. It's so bitter. And Apple is saying that this coating is now messing with the way that the AirTag connects with the battery. So interesting, in my opinion. So
I'm curious as to why. I'd have to look at, I guess, maybe wherever the coating is specifically where those contacts are.
I've seen a lot of really, really weird ways those little tiny batteries fit into things. Like in some cases, it's almost like around the side, or there's a little nub that it sits on. Like you can't predict like where the actual contact is going to be, because the entire side of the battery is the pole of the battery. So
one thing I'll never understand, and maybe not till I have my own kids, I didn't when I was younger, I still don't, and again I might not want until I have my own kids, is why are kids eating batteries? I didn't do that when I was a kid. And I guess I'm still a kid. I'm 23, whatever.
You know how many adults I've seen like a 9-volt?
I mean, to be fair, I have swallowed a magnet before, but that was because I was trying to see if it would still be like magnetized to the other side of my cheek, and it was one of those like connects. It was a sphere. It was a little ball. And I accidentally swallowed it, and it was like a not great time. So my parents were out of town or out for like a date night, and they came back, and the babysitter had to tell my mom that I swallowed a magnet. So we had to go to the ER and whatever, but that aside, that was a stupid thing that I did, and I chose to do that, and I knew what I was doing. I don't understand how kids are accidentally eating batteries. I didn't do it as a kid, my cousins didn't do that, my brothers didn't do that, I didn't personally know anyone that did it. My biggest question is, are they making toys different now, where it's like way easier, or just even devices now, where it's way easier to get batteries out? And to that end, why are people leaving these products around where you can easily remove the battery enclosure and let these kids eat these batteries? And why aren't we teaching kids not to eat batteries?
Well, very young kids will just put things in their mouths just to like do that, though.
Because they're curious. Yeah.
Because you're thinking of like kids who are like, they can think already.
Even
There's
still.
Kids, in the pre-thinking stage, kids just put things in.
If your kid's not old enough to know the difference, and you're worried your kid, or there's a worry your kid's gonna eat a battery, to me that's bad parenting.
Matt, how do you tell someone who can't speak not to eat a battery? That's the problem.
Tell them not to go to a certain area in the house or whatever, or don't look at some of the
They
wrong
don't.
No,
Don't have.
It's not that hard to tell a kid and to teach a kid.
You're
and also, like, just as you
Matt.
would not keep like a firearm near a child who wouldn't know better. Why are you keeping, or why are these people keeping, to the point where now it's a warning label and they have coatings on batteries for this? Why are you keeping toys where it's very easy to take out the battery? And to that end, why aren't manufacturers taking this into account? I mean, to be
I think
fair,
smaller batteries have become more common than they used to be, though, because it used to be AA's and AAA's always, and now you have these coin batteries that you didn't always have before.
That's fair. That's fair because that's what I grew up on, having these little like RC cars or whatever, and they had AA, AAA's. In some cases, those like Mondo huge batteries or the D-cell batteries.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or the lantern batteries.
Oh my god, do you guys? I don't know if like this was a thing at your house, but I remember we always had a ton for no good reason when we got older. But when we were younger, I felt like they were never around enough. You always needed them. But yeah, I understand AirTags are not made to be child-proof because they're not meant. The use case is not for a child. At the same time, like I don't know, it's the parents need to keep these things out of kids' reach.
Someone help me with the word real quick. What's the word for when you can't see an object, you think it doesn't exist?
Object permanence.
Object permanence, thank you. How do you communicate to a kid who lacks object permanence not to eat a battery if he finds it? That's the problem, is really, really young kids just put things in their mouth because that's how they interact with the world.
Okay, then keep those things,
Oh yeah, no. Listen, parents should be keeping those out of the reach of children.
The battery out of reach of the kids.
People make mistakes. People are stupid.
Or whatever.
Well,
it's pretty easy to put an AirTag up on a shelf.
Before we spend another 40 minutes on Grislow ranting about batteries,
Wait. I want to add one more thing, and it has nothing to do with what I'm saying. I just wanted to mention a comment. A comment that's part of the article. This specific article. It's I think the first one, or at least the most recent one. It's by this user Velocity G4, and he said, "Oh, it's got 26 votes." It says, "I only get strawberry and sour cherry flavored batteries for my kids. Are those okay to use in AirTags?"
That's pretty funny. Well,
that's it. I'm done.
On that note, you know what else kids like? Kids really, really like listening to music. And you can bring its spatial audio to Android now with Apple Music. So yeah, long story short, Apple is bringing their spatial audio and lossless streaming to Android. Very, very happy Android people with lossless audio. So bringing the Apple Music to another market. It's existed for a while on Android. It's just never been lossless, which is really cool. And they're doing that to keep up with Spotify that just did that. So we'll see.
Is Spotify doing lossless now?
I thought we talked about it.
Was this a story we covered already? And
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
I might have just blanked out on it.
No worries.
I think it just makes sense. It just makes sense, right? Apple Music's available on other platforms just as Spotify is, and why wouldn't they want to compete? Not only with Spotify, but the other streaming platforms. I think Tidal might also.
Tidal and Deezer are also like, I think either lossless or at least FLAC. And I think FLAC might be lossless if I'm.
Yeah. Well,
I got my codecs correct in my head, but.
Either way, it just makes sense from a business standpoint. Why would you only limit these nice features on the iOS devices when this service is available for not just iOS users? And to that end, like I was saying earlier about the services.
Yeah, like you were saying, get your tendrils in and then you pull them over to the Apple platform. That's the goal.
Right.
I don't think Apple Music would pull people over to iOS. And I'm saying that just because, at least personally, I prefer Spotify. I think it's better. I just like it more. I don't think a streaming service they offer is going to pull people to Apple's hardware, but I do think it'll pull them over to their services. And they're pushing their services hard, and they have been for the past 3 or 4 years, and they've only increased the amount of services that they've been having available over the past few years. And so it makes sense for them to make their services better and more compatible with other
but that's just Apple Music. They have other services as well. If they start letting Android people play with Apple Watches a little bit more, I think it does a good job of pulling people over slowly, just inch by inch.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't think the goal is to bring them over, at least in these instances, to the hardware. Just like I said, because they've been pushing their streaming services and their services in general. They've made that a big portion of their keynotes. I think even in that their cost breakdown or their financial meetings that they just had recently that we talked about earlier, they talk about their services, the big portion of their revenue. And they want to keep that revenue high, and they want to push the ceiling even higher. So again, it just makes sense.
But
I
tying
don't
you
think
into
that's
their
going to bring people over to the Apple Watch specifically. I
No,
suppose.
no, not flat out. No, I'm bringing out the Apple Watch in the sense that if they let Android users have more functionality with it than they do right now, all of a sudden now they can kind of start inching you over.
Right.
Well, I can see what you're saying in the.
I'm not saying full. I'm saying more than what there is right now.
Well, I think there is some credence to your point, just because there's a big push to make the Apple Watch more of a standalone product. Because right now it's still pretty much tied to the iPhone, but it seems like year over year they're getting more independent. As soon as they started selling the cellular version of it, people got excited. As soon as you could start downloading music like on Spotify and other applications, people were getting really excited. They really need to push for it to be a more standalone product and to work well with other devices, other non-Apple devices. I maybe in that regard I can see it happening, but I don't think they're going to get people to get the Apple Watch specifically because their services are so good. I think they'll do it just
I'm
because.
just throwing that out there as like a random idea, more or less.
I mean, yeah, I personally think they should make the Apple Watch a standalone product so that it can more easily compete with some of those other competitors. Samsung's, what do they call that? The
Galaxy Watch or something like that.
Yeah, there's a name for it. Is the Wear? Galaxy Wear or something?
Yes.
They came out
I think you're thinking of
the
Android
Gear?
Wear.
The Gear, I think. I don't know what it's called. Yeah.
Why
They have
way,
their own custom like Tizen, I think is what it's called, with the OS on that.
Okay.
By the way, I think they can improve it, and but yeah, I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, it's probably just good business for them to tie you into as many of their services as possible.
Exactly.
Fair.
Exactly.
And they do have a
Like
lot
we're-
of tie into that too. Fitness,
Yeah.
Apple Music.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I know that just having Apple Music wouldn't convert me per se, but who knows? Maybe it does for some people, and that's why they do it. Or more money because it's Apple. So, moving on.
True.
Anyway, speaking of a lot of money, Steve Jobs signed application auction starts with original document versus NFT. And the TLDR on this, the original document sold for $343,000, and about the NFT sold for $27,497. So yeah, it's basically the same thing, physical and digital. They took a really nice picture of it, and this is Steve Jobs' job application. I forget to where though. It's probably somewhere in here. This handwritten job application.
How much it was sold for? It was at the top of the article.
Yeah, it sold for. No, I was not sure where it.
Atari?
May have been Atari. It said after.
I
he
see the
dropped
word
out of
Atari up there,
Oh, I'm sorry.
where he
I'm
worked
looking
with
at-
Wozniak, so that's probably
It
Atari.
says a year later he joined Atari. The questionnaire is believed to have been completed around the time he dropped out of Reed College in Portland.
Oh.
Huh.
Wow.
Crazy. But anyway, it sold for a lot of money. What, $343,000, and the NFT sold for $27,000. So you own a picture for $27,000, and somebody else has the original thing for $300,000. Okay. So.
Yeah, I'm more of a when it comes to collectibles like this, I don't really have a strong opinion when it comes to a exclusively digital collectible. I don't really understand it. I don't really get it. I think I've said this, as a lot of us said on this podcast. I'm a very, physical touch, gotta have it type in my hands person. So just to have a picture of it, especially knowing that someone actually owns the physical version of it, kind of cheapens the NFT for me. It's still cool.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
It kind of cheapens it for me.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe if it was like even, I don't know, you'd have to have basically like the ability to make a hologram out of it, that detailed of a scan, to satisfy me for that. I think I've said, I think I've made my position clear too on this. I like it for like collectible like game pieces more or less, like, trading card games and whatnot. I think it works really well then, because then you can limit the supply of a card in like an economy and stuff, or a card economy.
right.
And then also as like a proof of ownership for these things, I think is cool. But
Exactly.
I don't know. It's weird to me for like a job application.
Right. And I mean, not even like producing a job application, a picture of somebody else's job application.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's not
granted,
even his
it's a
app.
famous
It's not even. Well, he's founded Apple, so I guess he can't apply there. But
Right. Well, we'll see. I mean, another story that I actually have for today is Coca-Cola is auctioning its first ever NFT collectibles on International Friendship Day. But there's kind of a twist to this. All the proceeds will be donated to Special Olympics, which is super cool. And there's a couple of things here. There's like a friendship box, a Coca-Cola bubble jacket wearable, a sound visualizer, and a friendship card. And it's kind of packaged almost like loot boxes, and it's auctioned as a single lot. So interesting. That's just kind of like an aside per se, but I don't know. Another company getting into NFTs that I didn't think would get into NFTs. So nice.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. It's just interesting to see more of these companies embrace this new form of collectibles and way of distributing collectibles. So
Right.
again, it's the digitization, exclusive digitization of some of these NFTs that don't have a physical token or a physical representation, that kind of just kill it for me when it comes to those. But it's cool that more bigger companies are embracing this.
Definitely.
I don't get it. I don't know why you want to own something from Coke. I don't know.
But
There's
also,
people who
the
do.
I don't see the
proceeds are going to
appeal.
Special Olympics, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I agree with it for the charity value. So
Eh.
good for them.
I don't know. Is it all going to charity? Is it really?
Good. They
That's my
said
question.
the proceeds. So proceeds are.
What does the proceeds mean after
yes.
they've taken their like skim off the top? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, the 40,000 contractors they hired to produce the NFT.
Yeah, set this up
the
in the first
consulting.
place. Like,
Yeah. Who knows?
Well, one of the things in the lot, I believe, is it's a jacket, and you're able to have it in some sort of, I don't know if it's
Can be worn in the Decentraland
yeah.
3D virtual reality platform.
yeah. So
I don't know what that is.
it's almost like you're paying for this digital loot crate or whatever, and then one of the items is also like a digital skin, kind of like in Minecraft, or not Minecraft, in
You're
Fortnite.
thinking of Fortnite.
Yeah, you can see how much I gain.
Let's not go down the Fortnite path. I don't need to anger a lot of people.
There you
But
go.
I don't think there's much other than that in the value, but
Let me go get my
I
walker.
guess we'll
and
see
shoot
how
my
much
fist at
this
the
thing
sky.
goes for. Because
Well, we'll
if
see.
there's one thing that the NFT market's kind of proven, it's that no matter what the NFT is of, there is someone who will pay some pretty nice coin for it.
Right.
Yeah, it really reinforces the notion that like when it comes to an economy, value is subjective.
Definitely.
But this
This is
is
true.
a show about economics.
There you go.
As much as I try and make it one.
There you go. Well, before we get to our last article today, Grislow, you wanted to start kind of a new segment, I guess. And you had something that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so just kind of riffing off this kind of idea, you hear meme tweets all the time, meme tweets, whatever. I thought it'd be really funny to talk about some meme tweets. That's me tweets. tweets that are from some like tech CEOs or people that are in, you know, the industry, and they just kind of throw something on Twitter that's just either silly, kind of hilarious, or out of left field. And so I thought we would start it today. Fitz, you can pull it up. Today's one's from Elon Musk, and yeah, it's got nothing to really do with technology much, maybe gaming, but it's just kind of off the wall.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's just you're just in
NPC,
time.
be back here, Nightfall, me, go side questing for 5 days. NPC, when I finally show up, hey, you're just in time. You know, about a big meme about how, you know, NPCs are just kind of useless, and it doesn't matter what you do in the game, they're always just going to be the same, and they're just silly. So
Right.
I genuinely can't imagine Elon sitting down and playing a video game. Like,
you
I
think
can't
his mind
even
is racing so much.
I can't even conceptualize him doing that. I feel like it's more like he just like powers down in like a corner, like a robot just got turned off.
I see that more of a thing that Mark Zuckerberg would do.
No,
Thank
he goes
you,
down to his
Musk.
desk and takes care of his lizard eggs.
Well, that too. He could be a robot lizard, right?
Yeah.
Go.
He's not human. We know that for sure. He's not.
Oh,
Man is not human.
Well, anyway,
And on
speaking.
that,
So there's your meme tweet.
There's
We're all
your
in
meme
agreement.
tweet. Well, the last story that we have for you today, you may be wondering what the title of this episode is about, and pitching signals instead of like mixed signals here. And Grislow actually sent in this really cool article here, and this is, I think, one of the coolest things that we're probably going to talk about. I know Ryan saw this article beforehand,
Whoa.
so we're about to get into it here a little bit, I guess. But long story short, the MLB is testing an electronic device for catchers to give signals to pitchers via bone conduction, which is absolutely crazy. It's just like a bunch of like buttons here, and a device called PitchCom that lets the catcher communicate pitch signs to the pitcher. So interesting.
Yeah, this is really cool. At least from a technology standpoint, you've got the transmitters in the transmitters in the catcher's hand, and then there's receivers in the catcher's helmet, and then in the sweatband of the pitcher. And yeah, it uses bone conduction, which is really wild to use that technology. It's being used in minors right now. But you know, talking about this in using this practically in the MLB, I think it can be practical, and I think it is practical. You know, sign stealing has been done for years. It's not a secret; people do it. However, the way that people do it is a problem. The biggest scandal, I think, in the last decade, if not few decades, was the 2018 Astros cheating scandal. For those of you who don't know what happened, at the Astros that season, the Houston Astros were a baseball team in Texas, and they were stealing signs in their home park. They had a camera out in, I believe it was center field, and it was pointed directly at the catcher to look at the catcher, who was showing the pitcher, you know, his fingers, and for trying to show him and communicate with him the pitches that he wanted the pitcher to throw. And that camera was routed to a screen in the dugout where the coaching staff and the other players were, and they would bang trash cans to signal to the batter what pitch was coming his way. And so they were able to sort of game the system in a illegal way, because you're not supposed to use technology to cheat. Moreover, it was more of a problem because that year they ended up winning the World Series. And so it was a big scandal. Players got a ton of flack because, and the commissioner did too, because the players did not get punished, the coaches did. And the players were big parts in it. But
chat,
this was a big problem because you know, they were using technology to cheat. And so if there was a way to remove that that issue of being able to catch signs by using this new kind of sleek and secretive technology, you could eliminate that risk and eliminate that issue. To that end, they also are putting limitations on the the batter having any sort of interception technology. If there's a second device that's being used by the team, it has to be in the case the entire game. There's rules that they're writing and have in place to make sure there's no sort of like illegal interference, because everyone knows if it's technology or has a power button, it can be hacked. I think this is good for the game of baseball just because it's 2021. Let's be honest here. We're using technology in all kinds of different ways, and to kind of get rid of the idea and the possibility of cheating in the way that the Houston Astros did, I think is very good. Baseball purists, I'm sure, will be unhappy going away from the hand counting with the catcher. Baseball, I guess, traditionalists would have a problem with that. Baseball purists who just want to see the game evolve, I think might like this. But I'm happy to hear more of what you have to say, Ryan, because I really see this as a very good positive thing. And Rob Manfred, the commissioner of the MLB, has made a lot of bad moves, made a lot of mistakes, and I think this is a positive change in the MLB. But I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Matt, you were going to read a comment before
I was going to read a comment. One of our
pop off.
One of our buddies in chat said one of the players had a wire under his shirt that buzzed him to let him know what pitch was coming to. Like that is nuts, and that's crazy. Kind of a similar as like bone conduction almost, where it kind of buzzes a little bit, but interesting. So I am going to pass it to you, Ryan. You have the floor.
Okay. Should I start by credentials or something like that?
I mean, you do whatever
My
you feel.
whole family has played baseball for many, many years. I have probably watched somewhere on the magnitude of 1,000+ games of baseball. Just watching my brother play all the time, or growing up in a house that watched baseball all the time. And this makes me viscerally angry. From the point of view of when I used to play baseball, to me it takes out the one part of baseball that to me felt like truly like you can actually think through it, is watching the other team's signs, watching their sign to steal a base, watching their sign to steal a bunt, watching their signs for pitches. And like when you finally break that code and like that inning, all of a sudden your team has a lot more knowledge into what the other team's going to do. It's like the one piece of baseball that's very like up top mental that you can like work through and break down. And I remember like even when I played baseball, like when I was in, I think it was like late middle school, we like broke a team's like codes for this is what pitch is coming and like this is when they're going to steal a base or bunt. And then that inning, we just took them to task over it the whole time because we broke that code. And obviously the way the Astros are doing it's cheating. And the way the commissioner handled it is wrong. What he should have done is strip them of their World Series, fine the team maybe into non-existence, maybe ban them for a year. Like he should have, the way that reaction was done is just wrong. He should have destroyed that team nearly over it. Because the way they did that is really, really just, that's not how it's meant to be done. You're not supposed to take cameras. Because most of the time you can't even see the signs the catcher has. You have to have someone on second to even pick them up for the most part. And that's kind of the way that should be, is you should have to have a player on second to even begin to pick apart the pieces. Then you also can watch, the other team's guy to pick up their signs for, hey, this means bunt, this means steal a base. And there's not even any talk of solving that with this anyway. But the point is, I think you're eliminating like the one part of baseball that is really like a thought problem more than like a reaction time and a lot of other things in an otherwise like pretty much reaction based sport. Because I think everything else about baseball is how fast can you react to a pitch, how well can you place your pitch, or like can you hit it to the right spot in an outfield. That's the only part that's truly to me played like in your head versus on the field.
So I guess one of my first kind of reactions to what you're saying about technology cheapening the sport, I can give you one example of a sport that is very popular in the United States that hasn't always used technology to kind of call plays and stuff, and that's football. The quarterbacks in the NFL now, in their helmets, have earpieces where either the coach on the sidelines or the offensive coordinator, whoever it is up in a booth in the stadium talking to the quarterback and giving him plays. Before these earpieces were in players' helmets, they did not have that. And to me, I think that's better. It creates a better line of communication for the players and the coaches, and it sort of, I don't know, streamlines the process. I don't think it cheapens that sport, and I don't think that it makes it any worse. To the point of stealing signs, and specifically in baseball, yeah, you're going to eliminate it for pitching. However, this is exclusively, and this is only right now, and I can't imagine it being extended any further than just between the pitcher and the catcher. But this is only for the pitcher and the catcher. This is not for the coach in the.
And that's precisely what makes it different than football.
And any of the running, the basers, or geez, wow,
Basers.
Great part. Any of the people on the base.
Any of the runners on base.
Any of the runners on the base. This technology is exclusively for pitchers and catchers.
But that's precisely what makes it different from football. Football is not a game about one person. Football is about a team working together to orchestrate a play. And then within that play, sometimes it's about chess moves almost. Like, you draw them in here so you can pull them out of play so someone can cut over and get a pass. That's one of the ideas about football. That's the mental aspect of football, is formulating these plays and then as a team executing them. Baseball is a team game, but it's played very much at the individual level and not at the team level. And you kind of and I don't think football relies as much on, like, you weren't really stealing signs as much. That wasn't like a part of things that happened a lot, because I mean, with how complex things get in football and how different ways you can variate a play, you can do a lot more. With baseball, you have X amount of pitches, and you can basically just give them like what kind of area, and even you can't get that area right every time as a pitcher because there's just too much human error.
Well, to your point of it doesn't, you can't steal signs or whatever in football. That's right. However,
a lot less common, because that's not so much the point.
And it has been very publicly, especially when they are found and are caught.
Hi, Patriots fans.
Yes, the Patriots fans. Nice to see you here. The Patriots. They were caught videoing for their own purposes or internal purposes for training, TV, whatever. Videoing the other team's sidelines.
They were videotaping their practice
as another form of cheating, just as stealing signs with technology in baseball. So to say it's not happening in other sports is not really true.
No. What they were caught doing was videotaping their practices, in which they got to see them run their plays. Then they don't have any plays to surprise you with, and you can recognize patterns in how their plays execute.
Yeah, but it doesn't have anything to do with. I guess there's not a good.
I'm saying the one-to-one is different. A better one-to-one, in my opinion, is saying like, oh, why don't we give people faceless masks for poker? Because bluffing is one of the integral parts of poker, and being able to like sneak those hand signs is one of the integral parts of baseball. I think it's the one like mental aspect of the game.
I just don't think that it's really going to cheapen the sport as much as it's going to improve it. Yes, you're not going to be able to steal signs anymore. And don't get me wrong here, and don't get this twisted. This is only being tested right now in the minors. There are plenty of things that get tested in the minor leagues in baseball that either don't make it up or stay there for a reason, or get thrown out altogether. It's in testing, so we'll see how it works, and they're starting it on August 3rd, so next Tuesday, I think it is. And only in a certain portion of the minors as well. It's in like one of the conferences. But like I said, I really don't think it cheapens it. Yeah, I understand, like, you can't steal signs anymore from the pitcher, whatever. But I think given the urgency to protect the sanctity of baseball against technology, I think in some cases, and especially this one, you might need to use technology. to save the sanctity of baseball. Because if you're going to be tipping signs off, or if another team's going to be receiving the pitch counts or the pitches, excuse me.
Pitch count. No, the pitch count's public knowledge.
Like it's a one-sided game, right? And again, it's not getting rid of trying to gamify the system or whatever. You can still do the same thing with the signs that the base coaches give to players for, are they going to run, like what they're going to do when they're on base, or to that end when they're at the plate, what they're telling them to do: bunt, hit it, ground ball in the middle of between the first baseman and second baseman, bloop it out in the outfield. That
you don't really get told that. Really, all usually
still there. It's maintained.
On base, I think you more
move,
get told
is just
steal or bunt.
What?
I think for like on base, it's usually just steal and bunt are like the big ones that you get signed.
Sure. I guess my point is they're using technology to prevent technology from really destroying the sanctity of the sport.
So
okay, but at this, I mean, listen, we're gonna go in circles here, but it still, to me, it eliminates the only part of baseball to me that is like truly a mental game. And within that, you can also change your signs. That's something you do if you think the other team's catching on. But that's also part of the bluff is, did these people just make really, like, 7 really good hits in a row and is my pitcher getting tired? Or did they break the code and we need to now mix up what our signs mean? Because that's something every team has, is a set of multiple signs.
So
I think if I can make one quick point, Fitz, I think the one thing that this actually can improve on, aside from keeping teams from stealing your pitches or nefarious actors or things that could take away from the sanctity of the sport, like what the Astros did, it's almost a sort of like I don't know if I want to call it handicap like device, but what if the pitcher can't really see, what the catcher's throwing up? A lot of the times the pitchers will paint their nails so that it's easier or the catchers will paint their nails so that the pitchers can more easily tell what they're throwing up. If they're throwing up a 3, it's easier to show than a 1 with neon color nails, right? Eliminating that sort of visual aspect kind of alleviates that sort of strain on the pitchers, especially if they're, seeing challenged. I think it's also sort of a good thing in that regard.
I'm sorry, I don't know a single pitcher who doesn't have 20/20 vision.
I mean,
hey, there's pitchers that wear glasses or rec specs.
Sure, but that rectifies their vision to 20/20.
So yeah. So I have a couple points to make. Number one, well, 2 points actually. In chat, one of our buddies says, I like this Ryan guy. And then
he's right.
Number 2, the same friend of ours in chat also goes, it's not about stealing signs, it's making the competition easier. That cheapens the sport. We watch major league sports because these are supposed to be the elite of the elite. And I agree with that because if you're stealing signs from another team, it takes that. I mean, I understand the mental value of trying to break the code, but at the same time, a good athlete is able to deal with any situation that may come up. I'm not sure if breaking the code is making it easier. I mean, yes, you're trying to mentally outgame the other team, but by keeping the codes a secret and keeping the signs a secret, you have a more level playing field, in my opinion.
Right.
Some other stuff that I thought of too is...
Hold on. The playing field starts level, because they can break your code and you can break their code. The playing field's level. It's just if you do it better than them, you've eked an advantage for yourself out of just being better at this aspect of the sport.
Sure, but in the case of, nefariously stealing signs, then you have an unfair advantage.
And as far as I'm concerned, he should have basically fined the Astros out of existence.
Right, but I think they're in a way you have to look at, okay, how can we prevent this from happening again? Because that really was the worst case scenario. Not only were they stealing signs at least a good part of the season, but they were stealing signs into the postseason, where teams have come out in the postseason that played them in the postseason and said, yeah, we heard these trash cans banging, and also the World Series. And then they won the World Series. This is the worst case scenario of it happening. And I understand that, like, you know, it's not always going to happen that way, but because it did, I think they really, and Rob Manfred really wants to tackle this issue and make sure that this doesn't happen again, because he saw how badly people took that, and rightfully so. And yes, he didn't deal with it properly. The players should have been fined. They should not have gotten.
As far as I'm concerned, the team should almost have been scrapped out of existence for that, because that's just.
I mean, fine,
I guess
yeah.
the Patriots are still around, and Belichick's still allowed to coach, so you know, he's in good company. But
yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just wanted to kind of bring it back a little bit to the actual thing. I found a couple things that I actually had a thought on, and number one, where does this go? So if it looks like this little like this sleeve that goes on your hand, and I'm trying to figure out where it would go. If it would go on the catching glove, you have it like this the entire time you're catching, and you would have the codes. And honestly, I'm not sure. I feel like the other hand doesn't have a glove on, so you'd have that just kind of where you'd normally put your signs. And
yeah, the other hand doesn't have a glove on, so you have to throw the ball with it.
And you'd have the thing strapped to your wrist. But what if you get a really wacky pass and you just start hitting buttons when you move your hand? Like you hit it up against a pad or something, and you just start pressing buttons, and the pitcher's like, "What the heck? Like, what am I supposed? What am I doing?" Like,
no. The pitcher knows when to expect him, because it's the windup starts.
Fair. I mean, I just would find it funny, like. It
would be funny to see him spazzing a little bit if the catcher catches something wrong.
Right, just like, what? And the other thing, too, that I just kind of find interesting is, what's the protocol that they're using to communicate between the actual catcher and the pitcher? Because it's a one-way transmission here. All they say is encrypted communication channel in this article. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can encrypt everything. You can really encrypt everything. How strong is that encryption? Like, what are you doing? Like,
that's probably AS128.
Yeah, but then again, there's a compute cost of having that on board on this thing with the battery, the lifespan of it, and it looks relatively simplistic to use. It's only like looks like a little PCB, and it just sends.
Well, they make custom chips that literally their only purpose is AES encryption.
Good point. Some AES.
So I imagine it's some kind of custom chip for that'll just do it as quick as possible for as low energy as possible.
Good point. Yeah, I mean.
But at the same time, it might have. No. Actually, never mind. The point I was about to make is wrong.
Nice. Anyway, my final point on this is technology is used in sports. It's used in sports for good or bad things. Like, think about if we would be playing American football today without any form of pads or helmet or anything like that. People, like, you'd have fatalities each game just with the amount of internal damage and strength that people have to cause concussions, terrible spinal injuries, and other things. That is a factor that improves the livability and safety of the sport as a whole. Something like this, while a little bit accessory to the like headsets that would allow coaches to communicate with players or something like that, is, in my opinion, not an integral part of the game. Yes, your pitcher and your catcher can put signs and whatever. I don't think it's integral to the actual gameplay of the game. Like, yes, it's helpful to have so another team can't break your code, but like you kind of mentioned, Ryan, that's part of the game. I would rather have teams not break each other's code, but I don't think it's the right way.
I want them to. To me, baseball is a very like reaction time and like physical repeatability game. There's, to me, very little mental. There's not many plays. There's not many of like this, that, or this. It's not like football. You have a play where you can try and draw people in. You can fake them out. Basketball, you run plays where you have picks and whatnot to try and get people off you and get in. I'm sure there's plays in soccer too. Really not my sport. Don't know anything about it for the most part. To me, it's you're taking out the one part of baseball that is mental, that is that like engaging the left side of your brain instead of just animal reaction time.
Good
And you're
point.
taking out that one little nugget that's in there. And I keep going back to poker as my comparison. If someone breaks the code in poker and they pick out your tick for when you're bluffing, well, I mean, they played the game better than you and they got rewarded for it.
Interesting. We have two comments here. First one, safety doesn't sell. Good point. And number two from our buddy Alex. Thank you for showing up, Alex. What technology would you add to rugby? And that's a really good question. I don't fully understand the sport of rugby.
First person slow-mo.
I mean, from my very limited exposure, it is a very physical sport. It is arguably much worse than football in a number of ways.
I think it's the only sport a football player can look at and go, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, and I mean, ideally, if you would say you would consider technology safety equipment, I would probably add at least some form of padding or a helmet of sorts to the game, even if it's not very well researched or something, just something to prevent head injuries or concussions or something like that. In terms of communication or coaching, I'm not super sure on how the game works, so I wouldn't be super sure on that. So another comment we got, as Grizzlo said, Manfred is practically public enemy number one if he allows technology into a dying sport when he needs to focus on restoring the charisma of baseball or the charisma baseball used to have. So
Yeah. I
He
think
still
that
should have
really-
just.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think we both agree he should have gone to town on the Astros.
Yeah, he dropped the ball. He really
He
did.
should have gone scorched earth on him, in my opinion. But
I still don't think
think-
that this is a viable this isn't a viable solution to that problem, in my opinion. I just think it's a quick fix to prevent something like that from happening. I think the bigger problem should be the regulation and the standardization of how you run a baseball franchise, not necessarily the the equipment you need to do said thing. Just making sure that there's no shady backdoor dealings going on in a franchise, and that would restore the
I mean,
charisma
that's
of baseball.
entirely in house.
True.
The best you can do for that one, I think, honestly, is just brutalize them punish-wise.
Well, I mean,
Punishment-wise. But at the same time, what if, let's say tomorrow I invent a new steroid. It doesn't show up on the current line of steroid tests. And then I do it as a team. Well, we just won a World Series that way, too. And if you're not going to find the players or anything, they have no incentive to stop.
I suppose another way to do this and to discourage nefarious activities within teams to try and steal signs or whatnot would be along the lines of what they're doing with pitching right now. They've had rules for the longest time about not having certain foreign substances or foreign substances at all with the pitchers, and so now this season they started cracking down on the substances on pitchers and doing mid-inning inspections. So in the same vein, maybe you have some
Pitchers
sort
used to
of
put
weekly. The MLB has some sort of inspector that goes around to the fields, to the parks, and inspects some way to try and see if they can find any sort of cameras or foreign electronics that aren't supposed to be there to prevent it from happening. It's the only other thing I can think of to try and prevent teams from doing things they shouldn't do and trying to skirt the rules.
Yeah, and having an official in the dugout wouldn't hurt either.
For sure. Well,
I don't know. I just want to.
I don't know.
I can zoom out on that.
yeah, definitely. I mean,
I almost want to zoom out to the point where you go, oh man. There's a name of an old, what's the name of that song? It's like, is it progress if a cannibal uses a fork? Is the name of this weird old song. And the point I think it's going for there is like, just because like you can theoretically make progress on it to make this technology better, doesn't mean it's actually good or helpful. Like, if for the social media is the example I think of, putting technology into that part of our life has decimated a lot of interactions people have with other people, and it's made a lot of people's lives objectively worse. And that's my zoom out of that. It's like, maybe you think you're fixing this issue with it, or maybe you're taking something like good away from a sport.
Who knows?
That being said, though, it's just to zoom back into the MLB, though, I don't think this is affecting the viewer experience as much. That's more of a like player experience.
Good point.
Right.
Well, anyway, I think we've talked about this a fair bit, and we had a really good discussion on this technology and technology in sports. Hopefully, we're going to be bringing more discussion around the way technology and life kind of like integrates with our life. So hopefully, you had a good time listening to us today. I'm not sure if anybody else has anything to add before we end, but if we don't, I'm going to close it out for today. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Tech Talk Nation. Tune in next week sometime. We're still trying to get our day that we're going to broadcast down, but we're all free around maybe a little earlier, but around this time of the day, and it works out well for us. So we're going to kind of try and be a little more active and get a better podcast rolling. So thank you for coming along on this journey with us. Hope you tune in next week, and hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much, everybody. Alrighty.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Tech Talk Nation. Tune in next week for more discussion on the latest in tech.